Thanks for tuning in live on the OFN today, Ourlads Football Network. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and welcome to a premiere show. I've been actually trying to put this together for quite some time. This is a show that is going to take a look at all 32 teams across the NFL, as well as the college football season, which will be really picking up probably a little bit earlier than the NFL. Of course, the games start a little bit earlier. Look at fall camp for the bottom line is we're going to be on top of tons of NFL and college football content right here on the OFN today on a daily basis. The times might fluctuate, but that's the beauty of the business we're in now. And hopefully we'll be able to do this in the evenings, though, normally between 8 and 9 Eastern time. That's a starting spot that I think might work best. Sometimes we might go a little bit earlier in the day. If we do, it's going to be probably somewhere between 2 and 4 Eastern time. But I would suspect most of our shows will be in the evening, unless we feel the afternoons wind up better. Looking forward to interviews as well. Matter of fact, I've already got one scheduled for Wednesday with Matthew O'Leary, who is an owner of a New York Jets channel. And we're going to talk about some of the AFC East teams on Wednesday, including the New York Jets. And I'll be booking more interviews like that, not only, of course, before the draft, which is a week from Thursday, but also after the draft, because once the draft's over, I'm going to have a good, We're going to have May, June, July. Probably 3 good months before training camp begins for all the teams. And so that's going to give me a really good amount of time to book 32 NFL guests for each team, talk about their offseason, draft, free agency, everything. And, of course, preview the season as well once we get really close to the start of the season. But we're going to be doing a lot of college football interviews as well. So that's coming up as we get closer to the college football season. I've got to show you this because this is what doesn't look good there. Here it is. I got to get used to the green screen. I'm trying the green screen out now. I used to have the green screen with my other show a few years ago, but trying them out. So anyway, this is what everybody is looking for, the Ourlads draft guide. Now, if you don't have any patience or if the mail is just taking their sweet time to get to you, because they sure do, then you can order a PDF version and you don't have to wait for the hard copy. Matter of fact, let me put that up here so you know exactly where you'll be going. Right there on the website. All right. Join the Ourlads Draft Insiders. So it's right here. Hit here. Buy draft guide. Very simple. And you could decide for the draft guide. You got the draft review guide that I'll be working on, as well as a bunch of other contributors here at Ourlads. And then here you got the opportunity to get the PDF version or just the hard copy. And there you go. Very simple. Head on over to ourlads.com. Okay, let me pop that up there. Actually, I don't want to pop that up there. What am I doing? Wrong one. I got to move down. They'll look the same. There you go. Okay, so there you go. This is the draft guide, and this is what we all look forward to every year, us crazy football fans. And I've got them. I hope you have them too. And again, if you don't want to wait for the hard copy, you got the PDF version. You'll have that in your box immediately. All right, so we're going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, the Buffalo Bills, and the Miami Dolphins today. But every day, even though we are going to take a look at some specific teams in the NFL or college football, that doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about everything else that might be going on. So it just so happens that these are the topics that we're going to zero in on. And it also just so happens that these three teams have new head coaches. Okay, so before we get into that, though, I want to continue with some more Ourlads content, including, now this is the latest mock draft that just came out about, a week ago. mock draft 4.0. Now, I am right now hoping to get final confirmation on when we are going to conduct our final live mock draft show. Now, that will be more than likely during the day, but if I had to guess, that'll be with John Cooper and Dave Syvertson. And we'd have the 1.0 mock draft live show. It's already in the library here at Ourlads, so you can check it out. Matter of fact, there's a link in the description of this video right now for the 1.0 and the 2.0. The 2.0 I did with Shane Hallam from Draft Sharks, and that's one of the top. It's my favorite. I think it is the top fantasy football websites out there. And all you have to do is take a look at the accolades that their top experts receive in the industry to know that they know what they're talking about and they are the best. Anyway, Shane Hallam, who just happens to be on my dynasty football team. You've probably had an opportunity to see Jared Smola. We've had him on the program and the network over the last couple of years as well. But Shane was with me last week, a couple of weeks ago. And so that's also in the description of this video. So you can check out both mock drafts. The one we did with Dave and John, that was conducted right after the Super Bowl pretty much. So it was pretty fresh as far as an early on in the offseason. So that is definitely going to be different than what you're going to see next week. And of course, that's why you can check out all the mock drafts here that are on the website. Taking a look at some of these right here. And I haven't even looked at this yet because I already have my mock draft. And maybe what we'll do is in the next few days or probably next week, as we do the final mock draft show, I'd like to maybe compare my mock with the experts at Ourlads. So let's see. So far, so good. I kind of have, again, I'm a Jet fan, so you would think I have some inside information. I don't, but I know there's a lot of people who are like, this happens in the draft all the time. You get these situations where for weeks, there's one player that is targeted to a team like Arvell Reese of the Jets. Then all of a sudden we get close to the draft and then boom, David Bailey. Now that seems interesting. Maybe David Bailey could end up with the New York Jets. That's possible. And then a few days later, it goes from being possible to now I'm hearing some sites out there that are saying, well, the Jets look like they're going to be going with David Bailey. It's like, how did that happen? So, and of course, the Jets haven't said anything, and you're not getting anything out of that room. Nothing. So there's no inside information from anywhere as far as the media is concerned. This is all guesswork. So look, I have no idea, and I really couldn't care less as a fan which direction they go because I trust that they'll get the right guy. And so whoever the Jets take, though, the player they do not go with, more than likely going to end up in Arizona. Okay. I have Jeremiah Love going to the Titans as well. So I know there are a lot of people who have Love going to the Giants and Tennessee going with an edge rusher. So that could happen. But, they talked about going with the best player. And if they are true to that, Love is the best player in the draft. Or at least, I honestly think that if you compare him to even Mendoza, Love is just an overall better talent. You got to look by position as well. And I know quarterback takes all, and I get that. But overall, which player in this draft do you think, if you had to pick one player to be a Hall of Fame career, who would it be? I'm going with Love. And we've been talking about Jeremiah Love for 2 years on this network. I enjoyed some really great conversations with my former Notre Dame analyst contact. Of course, they made that big run in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So a lot of conversations with Notre Dame. And so I've been following this kid for a while. And none of this is a surprise. All right. The Giants with Sonny Styles. Now, here's the problem. I have the Giants. Who do I have the Giants going with? I have the Giants taking Carnell Tate. I think this is going to be really out there. And look, I get it. If Love's available, the Giants should grab him. Just imagine Love and Scadaboo. Wow. The only thing that, I mean, we're looking, the only thing I'd be a little bit hesitant about with Love and Scadaboo is that I think Scadaboo is the type of player that needs touches. I mean, he needs to get like 15 touches a game. And if Love is going to be getting, I don't know, 20, something like that, I don't know. I'm not saying that if I'm a Giant fan, I wouldn't be happy about it, and it wouldn't be a bad pick. I don't know. I just feel like the Giants would be better off just going with a running back a little bit later in the draft, take a good player, match him with Scadaboo, because Scadaboo's got the talent. I mean, he showed you last year, even before the injury, that he could be a starter in this league. So I don't know, but I could see it happening. But if Love is off the board, the only thing with Sonny Styles is being an off-ball linebacker. I hear everybody, of course, comparing Sonny Styles being an off-ball linebacker to the most recent off-ball linebackers who were drafted in this spot. And if you look at it, those two guys did not really end up having great careers. So that's the thing that just popped into my head as soon as I heard that. I was like, yeah, wait a second, but those guys didn't amount to top 5 or top 10 draft picks. And that's the problem with drafting off the ball linebackers high in the draft. So look, he had an incredible combine, but how many times do we have to see this? Every year it happens. You get these kids and they have tremendous workouts, tremendous combines, and they get overdrafted. There's more data that shows that teams overdraft than underdraft or show sensibility and don't get carried away with a workout. I just look, again, really good, talented player, should fit in well with the Giants. I think McFadden's a nice linebacker too, but he is coming off an injury. He would instantaneously, talent-wise, be their best linebacker. And I'm not saying the Giants couldn't use him. But who did I have? Oh, I had Tate. But when I look at the Giants, I just think that if you get a big guy like Tate, because Tate's in number 2, and you get a big guy like Tate, and you get a combination with Neighbors, you got Neighbors and Tate, man, that would be a hell of a combo for years to come. So that's why I went with Tate. The Browns, actually, I think I also have Fano. Yep, I have Fano as well. So there you go. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Cleveland did a really good job in the offseason with making sure that their offensive line, it's like almost every player that they picked up in free agency was capable of playing multiple positions. But they really didn't pick up like anybody where, that's the guy. He's going to stay there. He's locked in. So that gave them the opportunity, draft time, to have a lot more flexibility. And yeah, I think Fano's and in fact, Fano's, as detailed here, is also capable of playing multiple positions. But I agree with Fano. Ooh, interesting. Caleb Downs. Now, how high will Caleb Downs go? Now, when we did the first mock, I remember Downs was like the 2nd or 3rd pick, and I remember being floored by it because I was like, a safety? You really think that that we've turned the corner in the NFL, that they're going to – I know the kid's talented. I get it. But that a safety was going to get taken, not just because it was number 2, but I was like in the top 10 even after Malachi Starks slid all the way to the 20s with the Ravens last year. And look, I know Downs is better than Starks prospect-wise, but still I was a little bit surprised by that. Now I think he's getting to that zone where it's a little bit more okay. But even then, I wouldn't be surprised if Downs went, I guess, anywhere from 7 to 12, 14, something like that. He could still slide because he's a safety. He really could. And I've been hearing too a little bit about, is he really, because people talk about, well, he could play nickel, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting positive reviews with him being a man cover guy. But anyway, he's a talented kid. And the Commanders, of course, they have a new defensive coordinator who used to coach defensive backs. So, he's going to want a defensive back to coaches to headline his secondary. Makes a lot of sense. I went with Ruben Bain. And I got to tell you, Ruben Bain, I think these short arms are going to be such a benefit to whoever gets them. Because I think if you throw that out, he should be right up there with the second or third pick of the draft. Now, the only reason why I think the Jets would probably still go with Reese or Bailey is because they're more projected like linebackers, like guys, 3-4 guys, where you look at Bain and he's just going to be a 4-3. He's going to be a 4-3 defensive end in the dirt, and that's going to be his position. So I don't know. I mean, I just think that wherever he ends up going, he's going to be a bargain, and he's going to end up having a very good career. Okay, next up. Oh, and look, Washington's done a pretty good job with edge rushers this offseason. So I don't think it's necessarily a need for Washington to go after an edge rusher, which is why Downs would make a lot of sense too. But you know what Washington does not have is a number one. And they've talked about being more aggressive and to get that defense going. Man, if you really want to do that, again, is it the arms? I don't know. But I think if they had Bain as number one with the rest of the talent they have at edge rusher, that all of a sudden makes that edge rusher room look really, really good. Mansour Delane, a lot of talk about who would be number one at corner. And this has kind of been the way most people have looked at it over the last several weeks. It's no longer really, as far as the experts, it's no longer a competition. It's that Delane is so talented, just like McCoy, that why would you risk McCoy over Delane coming off the injury? It doesn't make any sense. Delane is just as talented as McCoy. So I think that's the reason why everybody's going with Delane. And hey, he would be a local product here. So that makes a lot of sense. And that's the pick I had. So I had Mansour Delane going to New Orleans as well. I did not have Ruben Bain going to Kansas City, but what's interesting is I switched it. So I actually had Bain going to Washington and Downs going to Kansas City. So there he is. Bain does end up with the Chiefs. And yeah, the Chiefs need an edge rusher, no question about it. But yeah, wow. I certainly look, the Chiefs are going to get a good player. So we're just going to have to live with it. That, they had their bad year. And while it was fun for us non-Chief fans to see a great team, a great program suffer finally, because that's the way it always is. We always like to see the mighty fall. The fact is that it's going to be a fit. They didn't just miss the playoffs and get the 15th pick. No, they're at 9. They're getting a really good player. Okay. Or players after the deal with the Rams. Jermon McCoy going to the Bengals. Now, this is interesting because I have Sonny Styles going to Cincinnati. So, again, I had Tate going to the Giants. Ourlads has it with Styles to the Giants. And look, I'm not like a big Tate guy. I'll say that as far as being the top, the 5th pick in the draft. So I can see why Ourlads has them. And by the way, I say Ourlads, I'm talking about, the people, the experts, the scouts. This is their mock, not mine. So I'm just going to put it that way. So as far as McCoy, though, the thing that I talked about on some other shows is that I know there's people that feel the Bengals need a corner, and maybe they'll go out and get one. The thing, though, that I don't believe is that while they need a defensive player, I just think that the cornerback spot's the reason why I went with Styles. I think the cornerback spot, they're in a lot better shape than I think some people might believe. Not saying Ourlads, I'm just saying some people might believe. That doesn't mean they can't use more talent. Any best talented defensive player left on the board, that's what you do. I have to look at the rest of the players to see if there are any other players there on defense that the Bengals could have used, but I completely get it. But just keep in mind that that Bengal defensive backfield really solidified Jalen Davis at nickel once he ended up starting the last 6 weeks of the season, something like that. And the corner room was going and healthy finally. They played the best. That secondary was playing better than they had played in several years. And so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to think that they really need to go corner here. Because I think if you're going to go corner, well, I guess what they could do is they could put McCoy on the boundary and then move Hill back to nickel. Again, I think Hill looked better on the boundary. So I don't know. Again, everybody's different. Makes a lot of sense. We'll see how they go. Either way, you would think it has to be a defensive player. Okay, so here's Tate. So Ourlads has Tate going at number 11. And this is where I had McCoy. Okay, so McCoy here to the Bengals. I had McCoy here to the Dolphins. So the only thing with Miami is they have so many needs. And look, one of the needs they have, they got to get a big receiver. No question about it. That is a major need for the Dolphins. But the Dolphins have a lot of needs. A lot of needs. And we're going to get into them in a little bit. All right, Dallas. Wow. The Cowboys going safety. Nice pick. I went offensive line. Okay. So let me see if I could grab. I got my prospect list up here. I want to make sure I have the right information for myself. Okay. So, yeah. Look, I think there are some people out there who believe Thieneman is every bit as talented as Downs. And according to this mock, and probably where the draft will end up, Thieneman isn't going to be that much further along than Downs. So I think that's going to be interesting, because will teams then think about that regarding, hey, maybe I should trade down a couple of spots and I could still get Thieneman. I mean, that's something that could happen because we don't have any trades in this mock. So it's a little bit more difficult to decide exactly, again, and I think that's the way to go. I know it's fun to do trades and mocks, but it's hard enough to do a mock standard than to try to do trades. Okay. Maui Noah, meanwhile, if you take a look back, where is that's my pick. That's right. So I wanted to double check. That is my pick. So I had Francis Maui Noah going to the Cowboys, and I had him as, obviously, look, he's one of the top offensive line prospects in the draft. And the reason I decided it was a good play with the Cowboys is pretty simple. I mean, they need a right tackle. And, they went out and they got the Alabama kid, Booker, at guard. But they're in a pretty good shape with the offensive line now, but they have a really big hole there at right tackle. So at some point, Steele is a nice swing. That's all he is. He's a really good swing, but he's not a good long-term full-time starter. And it's time for the Cowboys to find his replacement. And maybe they do it in later rounds. But yeah, the Cowboys definitely need players on defense. I think one of the things they're going to look for later on in the draft is a middle linebacker too. So but it's too high for them to pick a middle linebacker here. Maybe with their next pick. Yeah, Mekhi Lemon, boy, does he make a lot of sense with the Rams. But so that I have Lemon going to the Rams as well. Yeah. So the whole thing, of course, with Adams, final year of his contract, everything going on with Nakua off the field, you need to grab another one of these guys, and it makes a lot of sense. Boy, would that be a great pick for the Rams if they can get this kid. I actually, if I'm ranking my top 3 wide receivers, I'm putting Lemon first. The thing with Tyson, I'd like to put Tyson first. And you know what? I think a lot of people would if it wasn't for the injury. The injury situation is just so difficult to deal with because you know how talented the kid is. Matter of fact, I think in my mind, I think there's only one receiver in this class that's a number one, a true number one, and it's Tyson. In my opinion, I think he's a number one wide receiver. I think Tate's a number two, and I think Lemon's a number two. Now, keeping in mind, I think they're high-end number twos, which is the reason why they go this high in the draft. A lot's going to depend where they go. That's why if I had Tate going to a team like the Giants, it makes a lot of sense. You already have a one, Tate's a two, and Lemon with Nakua, he's a two. So, but Lemon is, again, I like Lemon. He's number one. I put Lemon one. I don't know. I probably have to go Tate 2 and Tyson 3 just because and it's not talent. It's just the injury situation. Okay. Now, this would be interesting because I think that this is going to be, who did I have? I have Baltimore going, I have them going with Ioana, the Vega Ioana, the offensive guard from Penn State. As a Jet fan, I'd like to get him. But I think the Ravens, I think it's going to come down to Ioana and Sadiq. That's what I think. That's my guess. That's my prediction. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, this makes a lot of sense. They lost two of their young, talented tight ends. They need another young one. Really good pick. Akeem Mesidor. Now, this would be interesting. Of course, the knock on Mesidor is his age and all of that, but we know the kid is talented, and the Bucs need some more edge rushers. Let's see. I had them going with inside linebacker C.J. Allen. I think they're going to need an inside linebacker at some point, and who knows? Maybe, I don't know if the Bucs have a second. If they do, Rodriguez, if he's still there. If I had a late first round draft pick, I'd take Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez is the best inside linebacker in the draft. But CJ Allen, he's got more of the, measurables, what you're looking for and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. Okay. Next up. All right. So my Jets go with Jordan Tyson, and I would not be upset with this move. Again, I think Tyson is number one receiver. The question is going to be health. Now, I actually went with Avion Terrell. And the reason I went with Terrell, a couple of reasons. One, I don't know what the Jets are thinking about with that secondary, because a lot of those, several, even though they've done a really good job already in one year, putting a lot of their players in and other players out. There's still a few guys in there from the old regime. And it just, and one of their guys is coming off, an injury, Thomas from last year. They really like him, but he's also coming off an injury. Plus, even though Brownlee, they liked him, they traded for him. He looked like he played pretty well before the injury. They got Minka, who could play nickel. But I was thinking, you know what? Terrell can play both boundary and nickel. And at this point, with the top two off the board, I think Terrell might be the third. And considering he could play nickel, and he might end up being the most talented nickel on that team long term. So that's the reason I went with Terrell. But yeah, Tyson was still on my board as well. And I was really thinking of taking him there. All right. So this is where this is where the Jets, by the way, have his brother. I think, yeah, they have his brother, the linebacker. But Maui Noah is going to the Detroit Lions, and that is not a surprise. He is a physical player, plays with an aggressive edge, and that's exactly what Dan Campbell wants. And he even talked about it. They got to get back to, getting some probably getting back to the Lions' way is the best way of putting it. Anyway, yeah, the Lions have got to get another tackle. So who did I have? Who did I have the Lions going with? Well, I had the Lions going with another lineman as well. Again, remember, I had Francis going to the Cowboys, so he wasn't on my board. But I had Caden Proctor going to Detroit. So we both like the tackle there, which makes a lot of sense. All right. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Wow, 18. Imagine all the way to 18. Even though I think this is one of those drafts where you could see an 18 going 32nd and a 32nd going 18. So anything is possible. But yeah, this makes a lot of sense because in my mock, even though I didn't take a safety, I was really thinking of Thieneman. Thieneman he was still on my mock. So I was thinking taking Thieneman, but I decided to go with Keldrick Falk instead because I just looked at that Minnesota front and I'm like, man, they don't have anything there. They don't have any long-term studs up front. And that's why I went with Falk. So, but yeah, safety, even though he'd be the third safety, still, I think talent-wise, I put him up there with Falk. And there's Proctor. Again, I had him going to Detroit at 17. So, yeah, the thing with, there's a lot of talk about, they got the big injury there, of course, at left tackle. But on the right side, Moton is getting up there in age. So, it make a lot of sense. And Proctor could also move inside. And Carolina definitely can use some more players up front. And that's the reason that I also agreed. But I went with Proctor at 17 because I had Matt Winoa going earlier. So I went with Caleb Lomu here at 19. So we see eye to eye on the offensive tackle here. And there's inside linebacker. Again, I thought the Cowboys would be going inside linebacker at some point. And so there he goes. CJ Allen to the Cowboys. This makes a lot of sense. And they're going to be looking for the quarterback of the defensive, especially that linebacker that could run the defense, the dot and all, and end up being, the extension of the new defensive coordinator. So that's going to be very important for the Cowboys. I had them going with Cassius Howell. So I went with an edge rusher instead. And so, yeah, I just think the Cowboys have got to get some more pass rushers in there. So that's the reason I went that route. But definitely understand and agree with an inside linebacker. Okay, so here's the Penn State kid. And this also makes a lot of sense. As you can see here, they lost Siamola to Arizona. They have a big opening at guard. And I think Pittsburgh would be ecstatic to get this kid at 21. Again, I have him going 14. So I think that's probably his high point is Baltimore. But this is a talented plug and play, going to have a long career, no brainer. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Steelers, especially if you bring back Aaron Rodgers. You got to make sure that you have that interior protected for him. And I had, again, a player that could easily go 32, probably is more in the line going to go down a little bit further. But I went with Peter Woods. I think the Steelers really do need a young player up front to tutor and to eventually take over. At some point, we all get old, it's time to move on, and the Steelers have a legend there. So they've got to make sure that they bring someone in. And who knows? I mean, one of these defensive 3-4 guys up front could end up being available when the Steelers pick, if they've got a second round pick, and checked before the show. So that's very possible. The LA Chargers is Falk. I'm not going to, that makes a lot of sense. Again, Falk with the Chargers, of course. I tell you what, I got to say this. I think the Chargers are going to do serious. I think they have to. If he's still available here, they've got to trade up. Not here, but let's say here or here. Trade up. if this kid slips all the way to 21 and you're one spot away from getting an offensive interior player, which the Chargers are desperate for, and you get the opportunity to get the best one in this draft, and you're that close, you have to trade. You got to trade up. All right. Anyway, Falk makes a lot of sense because the Chargers have got outside the offensive line. There's nothing else they need on offense. The rest is defense. So Falk makes a lot of sense too. All right, Denzel Boston. Look, we have no idea what's going to go on with A.J. Brown. Nobody really does. And by the way, I'd seen him in going to the Chargers on my mock. So I have no idea what's going on with A.J. Brown. Nobody does. But this makes a lot of sense because, look, I don't think A.J. Brown's going to be on the Eagles this year, but they got to wait. And this is going to telegraph it for sure. But you can still draft a receiver, and if you hold on to Brown, it's not going to be a bad pick, okay? Because you still need a number 3. You just basically, your number 3, even though you didn't throw to the number 3 very often, just left. So look, that makes a lot of sense, but it would kind of telegraph in a way which direction you're going. So you might as well get the second best receiver size in this draft at wide receiver. Concepcion. Now, I don't know how high I can expect Casey Concepcion to go. Because a player that has had so many issues with hands, and look, I know as a Jet fan, this Arian Smith kid came from Georgia. That's all everybody talked about. Doesn't have good hands, but he's got speed. He's a player, good player, but he just outside he just can't catch as well as other players. Even though so far, limited action, he hasn't had those issues, and they've been very. They've talked all about that. It's the reason why they drafted him. But Concepcion's got something that Smith doesn't, and that's why he would be a higher draft pick. And the ability to, you touch the ball in any way, shape, or form, and you get a touchdown away from opening up games, especially in the return game. And so with the Browns, the thing is, would I see them going receiver here? Well, obviously they need more weapons on offense, obviously. And it would be a surprise to everybody if they went defense. So if this is the most talented player left on the board, why not? Because again, every time he touches the ball, he could score. You need those types of players on your offense. I decided, who did I go with? Oh, by the way, I went with Monroe Freeling with the Eagles. So I did not go with wide receiver. I instead went with Freeling because I think the Eagles are definitely targeting an offensive tackle in this draft. Lane Johnson's getting up there in age, and they got to find a replacement. And I just think that's the Eagles thing to do, is to go on the offensive line in the first round. As far as Cleveland, I did go wide receiver, but Tyson winded up slipping in my mock. And again, I would not be surprised if that happened. There is a player that is going to slip in everybody's mock, and it's going to player that is going to slip in the real NFL draft. There's always a player or two that slips. 100% happens every year. And usually it is because of injuries or who knows. Now there's talk about, we found out that Bain was in an accident in 2024, I think it was, and will that impact his draft? And some of the I think I was getting this information from some of the I think it was personnel from a team. I don't know if it was a source or an actual person who came out and said, look, we already knew about this. And I'm sure they did. Anybody thinking of taking Ruben Bain already knew. This wasn't a surprise. The NFL, they vet. None of this stuff is going to be a surprise. So I don't really. That's why I really would probably think now that if Bain does end up slipping to, which I still think is a slip, to 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever, that maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's not just the arm length. Maybe it's the combination of the two. maybe he would have been drafted a little bit higher. But that's just a little bit, especially what happened to Pierce last year with the Falcons. That's fresh in everybody's minds. Okay. But yeah, I don't have Concepcion going here, but I just think, yeah, again, that's because I have Tyson left in my mock. But you do have to wonder, because let's see, if the Jets don't take Tyson, who would? The Vikings don't need him. They need defense. Carolina, I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina took Tyson, but boy, that would be really loading it up. I mean, that would be loading it up. Yeah, the Cowboys don't need a receiver. The Steelers, it's possible. Again, they'd be loading up a little bit, but it's not surprising. And no way the Chargers. But yeah, the Eagles would be sitting there with a distinct possibility if he was still available. Absolutely. I could see that happening. But again, I just, the way it went, I went with Tyson with Cleveland. Okay. Next up, McDonald and Chicago. Yeah, the Bears have got to do something up front. No question about it. That's the reason why I went with Messidor in my mock. Omar Cooper to the Bills. Yes, wide receiver, 100%. I agree. We're going to talk about the Bills in just a little bit. And I went with Denzel Boston because he was available in my mock. Caleb Lomu to the 49ers. And I went with Lomu a little bit earlier with Carolina. So, look, this makes a lot of sense. There's no doubt that the Niners have got to think forward. Trent Williams is not going to be around forever. The only thing that I would wonder is would they go offensive line early in the draft? That's not the way they do things. The way they run their offense with that line, they got a lot of guys that are drafted in the 3rd round, the 5th round, that sort of thing. So they don't really do it. It's a scheme that's what really works with what they do there under Shanahan's offense. And I don't know if they need to invest a 1st-round guy, but I think it makes sense to do that because they have a legitimate number 1, and then the rest of their guys can be 3rd and 5th round draft picks. But if Williams leaves and you don't have that guy, that one guy, then that's probably not a good thing. I would think that would be really messing with danger there. So Lomu would make a lot of sense. I went with Kenyon Sadiq because he was still available in my mock. And if he was still available all the way down at 27, which he probably won't be, then I think they would just snag him. Okay, Freeling, still available in the Ourlads mock, goes to Houston. Yeah, offensive tackle definitely makes a lot of sense. Look, they're going to need a center too. But because right now, even though they've got the veteran at right tackle, and they do have a couple of the players, they do have more depth now and better depth than they've had in the last few years. But they really need more talent too. So this makes a lot of sense. I went on the other side. I didn't have Freeling left. I didn't have any of the offensive linemen left, actually. So I went on the defensive side and went with Lee Hunter from Texas Tech. So there's Terrell. Wow, what a bargain that would be for the Chiefs to get Terrell all the way down at 29. Definitely they have to add some more corners. And yes, with McDuffie out, Terrell would make an awful lot of sense. I went with Casey Concepcion. He was still available on my mock. And boy, would Andy Reid love to have Casey Concepcion on his team. Now, there's Colton Hood. And you know what? I also had Colton Hood. So it just turned out that my mock had both McCoy and Hood, the 2 kids from Tennessee. So, yeah, I totally agree. Again, I just think the secondary, we're going to get into the Dolphins in a minute, is so bad or so they just don't have enough talent, enough top end prospects talent in the secondary, and they've got to fill that. And so that's why I want to double dip if I'm Miami in the secondary. So, yeah, if the Dolphins end up going early in another direction, like in Ourlads with a receiver, they have to get out of the 1st round with a defensive back. Okay, and then Patriots with TJ Parker. This also makes a lot of sense. They need another edge rusher. Absolutely. They lost some talent there in the offseason, and they need a young kid too. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Parker was someone I was considering, But I went with Caden McDonald, the inside defensive tackle, maybe the best run stuffer, nose tackle in the draft. And I think he'd also fit in well with the Patriots. And Keith Abney, a corner going to Seattle, also makes sense. Of course, they lost Woolen, so they're going to need to replace him. And I went with safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren because they also have to add a safety and replace Bryant, who is gone. So there you go. That is a little bit of mock draft talk for right now. Now, let's go ahead and what are we going to do here? Let's start with Arizona. So here's the Arizona depth chart, the Ourlads Arizona depth chart. And it's probably a good time just to remind everybody about the draft guide. If you're just tuning in live here on the show, don't forget the draft guide. Don't forget to, if you don't want to wait for it to come in the mail, get the PDF. I'd get the PDF and the hard copy. I mean, obviously I don't have to pay for it, but if I did have to pay for it, I'd get them both. It's just that much more useful. I mean, everybody wants the ability nowadays when you're on the run and you want to be able to look at something on your phone, you got it. As far as the guide, it's also awesome because you can take it with you. I love them both. Let's just put it that way. But I do it for a living too, so I'm a little bit different than the average person who's doing it for fun and just for really good reading material and to be educated in what's going on and all that. But I think you have to have both. Okay, so Arizona. Take a look at Arizona, and they have all 7 of their draft picks, including the 3rd overall pick. So again, taking a look at their defensively. You can see, and this is a switch too. They are, because take a look at their defensive alignment here, and they're running a 3-4 here. Sweat, that looked really good for them last year. That was a nice move, but Xavier Collins is not an edge rusher. He's not a pass rusher. I like Baron Browning. But BJ Ojulari, I mean, there really isn't a number 2 here, edge rusher. So it just makes a lot of sense for them to get that second guy. And I don't know about Sweat long-term either. So you've got Sweat, and then you would have another edge rusher. So you'd be in really good shape on the defensive side. And don't forget last year in the draft, Nolan, that was a really good pick. And Will Johnson and Denzel Burke. I mean, look at this. This is so funny because we talked about it last year at the time and look, you still have to go a ways. None of this is a done deal until we see what happens 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But last year, I just couldn't understand why, I understood it, why it was happening, but talent wise, Will Johnson's not a 2nd-round draft pick. So the 1st-round kid, he's got the ability to be a top 20 kid. But there were a lot of issues, most notably the injury situation and how long of a career would Will Johnson have. So I get that. That's why it was a good value pick in the 2nd round. But Denzel Burke to go in the 5th round, I mean, that's just total value. And this is no surprise that Denzel Burke is starting for them. So they were able to get value here, and to go along with their 1st-round pick, Walter Nolan. And this turned out, I think will turn out to be a really good draft for them last year. Don't forget Garrett Williams, Achilles injury late last season. So you got to keep that in mind. But yeah, overall, I'd say the rest here, again, we talked about that linebacker at offensive guard. Right here, this is a big issue right here, right tackle. All right. So they have a really big hole at right tackle, but they're not going to go with that. Look, there are some people who have mocked a right tackle with Arizona at 3rd. I just don't see that happening. Look, there are a lot of good, solid tackles in this year's draft. I think it's nice and deep, but the problem is even though it's deep and you can go anywhere from like 5 or 6 1st-round tackles, none of them warrant being a top 5 draft pick. None of them are, this guy is going to be a 2-time, 3-time All-Pro and he's going to the Hall of Fame possibility and all that. No. I mean, when you draft a tackle in the top 5, that's what you're thinking. That's what you're thinking. You're thinking he's going to be a tremendous player, and you're not going to have to worry about that position for the next 10 years. And even though a lot of these guys are solid tackles in this class, none of them are of that ilk. So, no, I don't see it happening. But anyway, we'll see. Anything's possible, especially. I just also couldn't see how both Bailey and Reese are not picked in the top 3. That would be crazy. And that's where Tennessee would have to, because if Arizona would pick a right tackle, then even though Love is still the best player potentially in this draft, they might have to think, okay, you're giving us Reese or Bailey, we got to go in that direction. You know, as much as we love Love, we're not going to let him drop. So, all right. So, anyway, nothing really happened defensively in the offseason for Arizona just yet. Another reason why they could really use their first pick of the draft. Most of their talent here went on offense. Okay. Let's take a listen to Mike LaFleur. Where is he? Okay. There's a couple of questions here in his introductory press conference I want to go over. Again, me being a Jet fan, I know everything about I know more about Mike LaFleur than 28 other fan bases. So I have a really good perspective on Mike LaFleur. So here's one of the questions.
Mike, Teo Mackey, Arizona Republic. I'm curious, you talked about Sean. Obviously, the last time we saw you as a full-time play caller was 3 years ago. What have you learned over the last 3 years from him specifically in the play calling area that you can implement, as a head coach calling plays?
Yeah, we like to say this in LA, the worst play call, the late play call. Get the play call into your quarterback, get the play call in to the offense so they can go operate. That was in really even the times I had with Kyle in San Francisco having to go against the Rams. The one thing that always stood out was how they operated pre-snap. Like it just looked clean and sharp. And I mean, I am so fully invested in that portion of it. We're going to have, everyone's got good plays. In my opinion, everyone has good scheme, but it's really leading up to that moment. How clean do we get out of that huddle? How do we operate? How fast do I get that call in there to allow these players to go do what they do best? And I think that's something that we even just got better at in the last few years, particularly this last year. And that's something definitely that we'll implement as we get this thing going.
Okay, let's move on because there's another sound bite I want to go over. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to go over some of the comments too from this specific press conference. Okay, here we go.
All came together for you to land at this decision and kind of how all of that, I guess, balanced into your thought process.
Yeah, Teo, I'd say the way we viewed Mike's time in New York was a positive. Mike had his hand in walking into a tough situation. And, the Jets ran into some tough things to deal with. And I think that
now what they're not telling you is the tough situation was Greg Knapp passed away before taking over as I think he was going to be either quarterback coach or, he's going to be a senior offensive assistant. And he was going to be the guy that had all of the experience and really should have been the offensive coordinator, to tell you the truth, because he had a tremendous amount of experience and successful experience. And LaFleur had none. LaFleur was hired by Robert Saleh because he was the brother of Robert Saleh's best man at the wedding. That's it. Connections. We all know about connections in the NFL. Well, that was a connection. And so that was the tough thing that he had to deal with. I mean, look at his face. He's thinking about those times with the Jets. It was terrible. I mean, really, really bad. And I'm sorry, but the odds of Mike LaFleur turning into a successful head coach with Arizona are extremely low. Extremely low. I wish the Cardinals well. I talk about all the time that coaches deserve second chances no matter what the situation, and that is true. I just don't personally believe the time is right. I don't know what the rush is about, but maybe they know something I don't, and that learning from the best in the business under that Ram umbrella was enough.
Is always beneficial when you can see different things in a building. It was his first chance to call it full time. And I think that was a positive. Yeah, it probably didn't go the way Mike wanted it to go, but it was a learning experience. And the way he talked us through that and what he gained from that and how he improved from that was something that we really looked on as something that's beneficial. And then for him, just to add to his resume and had to just building his profile to spend the last 3 years with the Rams and to learn and to see what they've done and to see how Coach McVay has ran that program there. I think that's all been beneficial. So, really it's not, we didn't look at it for Mike as what he's been doing the last 3 years. It's what he's been doing basically since he was this tall, running around shagging balls for his dad. And so, he comes from a football family, was apparent from the second he walked in. And so all of Mike's experiences led us to today and him being our guy.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I don't know. I was completely floored when I heard the news. I was shocked. I really was. Because if you look at it this way, it's like, okay, which I completely understand. He learned from the experience, the tough experience. So I get all that. But on one hand, it's like, well, then I guess he really had nothing to lose, right? Because he didn't do a good job. And yet he still got brownie points just for being there. I can't give him any credit at all with what went on with the Rams. That's McVay's team. Anything that happened, I don't care about play calling and all that stuff. Anything that happened with the Rams offense is McVay. And look, this is what happens in the NFL all the time. You get these successful head coaches, especially if they're offensive geniuses. And hey, McVay kind of is. You're going to, I want your offensive coordinator. I want your second offensive coordinator. I want your quarterback coach. But I want that guy. And they're going to pick. And hope that, and everybody's hoping they got the right guy. Everybody's hoping that they got the guy that learned everything. And look, Minnesota's dealing with a pretty good coach. We'll get into that later on this week, hopefully. But there are some concerns, but we'll get into that. But there's success there with O'Connell, and they're hoping the same success is going to be here with LaFleur. But the other thing I don't like is hiring Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator. I can't believe that guy really was able to get another OC job. I don't know. I wish them well. I mean, Arizona is one of those. I mean, I feel for them because I know what it's like to be a losing franchise for the most part. So we all root for those programs and hope that things change. Yeah, I don't know. Because it's not about being an offensive genius or I'm going to go to Arizona and everything I learned with the Rams and McVay and how to run an offense and we're going to be really innovative and all that kind of stuff. That's not being a head coach. There is such a big difference between being an OC and a head coach. We see it every single year. And I just can't look at Mike LaFleur right now as a head coach. But I hope it works out. I hope I'm wrong. And remember, too, this is important. Probably should even be a disclaimer here. This is all me. Okay? So this is all my opinions. Should actually be called, probably should be called the Greg DePalma Show, but I don't like doing that. And I'd rather take the name for Ourlads anyway. And I'm saying that because it should be because it is. It's just all my opinions and what I feel, and it's nothing to do with Ourlads as far as what they feel. Okay. So moving on. Arizona, third pick in the draft. Okay. Let's talk about Buffalo. Let's get Buffalo up here. Oh, Joe Brady. All right, this is going to be interesting. Where are you, Joe? Oh, I think I could have popped you in there without doing that. Here we go. All right, Joe Brady. This is his introductory press conference, and boy, was he mushy. Actually, I knew there was one other thing I wanted to do. Let me go back because I wanted to check out some of the comments. Okay, so here are some of the comments. All right, here we go. Like this guy's energy over the last couple of head coach hires. You can see his passion too. The past two guys were like mannequins. And this is the thing I am a little bit concerned with, is that is this part of why he was hired? Because you can definitely be swayed by personality when you're hiring anybody. It happens all the time. And not just for the fans, but you got to believe Arizona and the general manager and you see what was there. And then you get LaFleur and he's coming in and he's all petty and he's all happy. And, he's got the moose hair and, all that kind of stuff. And I could see you feeling, because isn't that what always happens, or what usually happens when there's a coach fired? If that coach is like a real hard ass, what do? They get a player's coach. And then what happens if there's a player's coach? We get the hard ass. So that's what I wonder. Maybe that had something to do with it here. But for the most part, the fans seem to like the guy. And most of the time, I think in these comments from these introductory press conferences, you are going to see positive responses. It makes sense. There's hope. That's what you should have. Doesn't usually happen with the New York Jets, trust me, with their channels that I happen to check out, with the exception of Matt O'Leary's channel, which we'll be talking about in a couple of days. Okay. Oh, check this guy out. Jacoby Brissett burner. I don't think I've seen a new Cardinals head coach come in with this much gratitude and passion. Gratitude comes a long way. All right. Anyway, he's going to do great here. I was a little skeptical, but wow. Yeah. I don't know, man. I watched and again, you have to come from the Arizona Cardinals point of view, what they're used to dealing with for the last several years with the last two coaching hires. It's not just two press conferences you're dealing with. As a fan, as you know, everything that comes out of that building with training camp and drafts and every week after the games and during the week, and it's just the same guy over and over and over again. And then you get another guy and he's like the same way. And this is going on. This is your rep for the team for the past several years. And I can see how you then get a guy that is completely opposite with his demeanor. And I can see all of a sudden why wow, that's our representative now. Oh, I'm all in. Thank goodness. We've got some pep. We've got some confidence or excitement, whatever a case may be. So I really do get it. I really do. All right. I like him. Definitely more of a leader than I initially thought. Looks like a really good hire. I'm sold. This guy seems to have some fire in his gut. 10 out of 10 hire. Wasn't super confident when it was taking forever, but glad we got it done. So yeah, I can go on and on. Most of or all of them seem to be pretty confident. And so that's great. Best of luck. Okay. Joe Brady. Wow. Buffalo Bills. I got some things to say about the Bills. All right. Joe Brady. Let's see what Joe Brady had to say here. Again, if you haven't seen this yet, this is an NFL head coach.
I don't know where she is, but I want to thank my wife, Lauren. She's right in front. I thought she was going to be with the little baby. She's right in front. I said hi to the guys. Didn't even say hi to her. God, off to a good start. I definitely can't look at you now. This job demands sacrifice, right? I'm calling you on the way to a game while you're going into labor, right? And I find out after a game that you go through, you give birth by yourself. This game takes away time and energy and presence from you. And you've carried the weight that comes with this job so that I can pursue my calling. Your strength, your belief, and your steadiness is the foundation that allowed me to do what I do. And you believed in me long before this moment ever arrived. I am nothing without you, and I will not get anywhere ever in life without you. I didn't cry, so that's not going to go well.
Okay. Yeah. Look, we still have a ways to go here before I make my final analysis here. I don't know. It just seems, is Joe Brady the 2026 man? Is that what he is? I mean, and I have no problem at all with the way he spoke about his wife. I mean, that's awesome. It really is. I haven't really seen it before from a head coach at his introductory press conference. This emotional, and he was emotional throughout. And I have some more thoughts on it, but let's move on. One more spot here before I move on to another interview room.
At the same time, we got to move forward, right? And I think it starts with a new energy, a new mentality, and a new vision. A new energy that I got to drive every single day. One thing that the guys know about me, and it might be from espresso, it might be from Gatorade Fast Twitches, but I'm going to bring the energy every single day. And I believe people are going to feed off of that. I truly believe in being the temperature, right? I'm the weather, and they're going to feel it every single day. A mentality. I believe in everything about these guys right here, right? And a mentality as we go forward, that it is a nameless, faceless opponent that we're going against. And they got to play us and not the other way around. And I mean that with everything. They got to play the Buffalo Bills. They got to play Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, not the other way around. And it does not matter the day of the week, the time of the day. Is it outside? Is it inside? What's the weather? Just put the damn ball down. Let's go play. All right, and that's going to be the mentality that we play with. That's Buffalo. And then a vision. I believe in communication, connection, accountability, and love. I said this to the staff. Quiet teams don't win. Quiet teams do not win. All right. And I'm going to everything in my power to have that communication line open in everything that I do. I believe in that. And then love. Connected teams win. Connected teams win. If you love the man next to you and you care more about his success than your own, that's when you're going to win football games.
Interesting. So in two different sound bites, we had a head coach who got very emotional with his wife and then talked about love. And I think this is a really important response from one of our viewers. So I really appreciate it. Anytime This show is going to be all about interaction. I'm not doing this show to talk to myself for a couple hours every day. I'm doing this show to talk to you guys, and I want you guys, especially if you're a fan of a specific team, to interact, because this is definitely how we find out from the source, from the fans of specific teams, exactly how they feel about their team. And this is just what I was talking about with the situation in Arizona. You know, if you have a disciplinarian, you go with a player's coach. And according to Torrey, if you go with someone who's too rigid, well, you go to Joe Brady, and he's all about communication and love. And that's what happens. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes it's a success. So it just, you never know when it's going to hit. You never know. But you're not going to go from a rigid coach to another rigid coach and vice versa. So this is the hope that they have the right guy. The one thing that I would be concerned with, and that is, does Joe Brady have what it takes when he needs to get his point across in a stern manner? And he has to be tough. And he has to not worry about feelings. How does he communicate then? Is he going to be too much of a player's coach when he communicates with his players? Because that won't work. No, I don't know if any of us will ever find out. Maybe eventually, whether he has success or failure, we'll find out. But not until probably after his time in Buffalo is up. Whenever that is. But that's the thing that I'd be a little bit concerned with. And the other thing too is what kind of a head coach, just like I said with LaFleur, you know, he's got this relationship with Brady, with Allen. And, you know, a lot of people believe that he's one of the better young minds as far as offensive coordinator, NFL. But can he be a head coach? That's the only thing. And another thing, I was a little bit, I didn't have it on here, but I mean, I could play it. But it was a really strange response from Brandon Beane. They asked him, when did you know that Brady was your guy? And I swear, I'm not overreacting. It took the guy like 5 minutes to answer. I mean, he just kept talking, and he was going over the process basically. And like, I think everybody expected when the question was asked, it would have been like, oh, well, we knew, you know, and don't move on. But he gave this like long, drawn out. We went through, you know, we had these 9 guys, and then Brady was one of our top 2 or 3, and then we just kept coming back to Brady, and it was like, and this went on for like 5 minutes. That's why I couldn't play it. It's too long. But you could check it out. Just, if you want, check out if you haven't seen it before, check out the press conference. It's early in the press conference. It's one of the early questions that Beane was asked. And I don't know see, I remember early in the process when the Bills, you know, fired McDermott and okay, who's going to be the next head coach? Well, there was all talk from other teams about wanting to interview Joe Brady, and Brady was somebody that, and he had already been interviewed, in previous years. And so there was a lot of that talk going on. I remember saying, I don't understand this. Why do so many other teams want to interview Joe Brady? If he's that good, why haven't the Bills hired him yet? What are they waiting for? They know the guy better than anybody. And then hearing Brandon Beane go over this long, drawn-out answer about 9 guys, and he made the top 2 or 3, and I don't know. It just sounded weird. Maybe it was because he was being too truthful, you know, which is a good thing. You know, maybe this is what all GMs got to go through in the process, and I'm giving too truthful and I'm being too detailed, or it's just, because what you would expect would just be immediate answer to that is something positive and absolutely we had to do our due diligence, but he was our guy all along, even if it's not true. Because if you say it like that, we're all going to believe you. Why would we not believe you? But that answer, including the fact that it took him as long as it did to hire him, that was always strange to me, because I always figured he was going to get the job as long as he didn't go interview somewhere else, or it didn't look like that. Then, I didn't hear anything about Brady except that he was waiting for the opportunity to be the head coach now with the Bills. And because of that, I felt all along he was going to be the guy. I just didn't understand why it took so long. So, look, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that Brandon Beane knows what he's doing. He's obviously had success there in Buffalo, or not, knows what he's doing or not. So he's obviously, he made the call on Allen, which a lot of other GMs would have been probably still hired or with their original team if they would have made that call too. But the one thing that I think a lot of people just didn't understand, including me, was why McDermott was fired and Brendan Beane got to stay. That's all. I think that's the one situation that we were all questionable about. And I got to tell you, I don't understand. How do you give up a second round draft pick for DJ Moore? I do not understand that. I mean, I'm sure the fans in Buffalo were feeling the same way than media types like me outside of Buffalo, that for the last couple of years have been screaming for the Bills, especially if you're a fan. Where are the receivers to help Josh Allen out? Why haven't you been able to go out and get a receiver for Josh Allen? And then he finally does it, and he gives up a second round draft pick. Nobody gives up second round draft picks for receivers at DJ Moore's age, unless they're like at the elite of elite. I mean, I'm sure that's probably the one thing that it is. I think AJ Brown might covet a second round draft pick, maybe. I mean, they're not getting a first for him. So maybe that's going to be a sticking point if he does go to the Patriots, wherever he goes. If the Eagles do want to get rid of him, just to get rid of him because they got to get him off the locker room, will it be a second round draft pick or a third round draft pick? I don't know. But no, look, it's the Bills. So when it's a second round pick, it is like a third round draft pick. I get that. It's wow. And they haven't exactly hit home runs with the recent picks. Let's take a look at their depth chart. Let me see here. All right. So let's take a look. I can just take a look here and I'll know all I need to know about the draft. So let's see here. Offensively, these are all their starters. And I have one first round draft pick, Josh Allen. I've got a second, third, second. Well, that was a long time ago. And so one first round draft pick on the starters on offense. And we all know what's going on with Keon Coleman. I'm sorry, but I wish Keon Coleman all the luck in the world. But the odds are really against Keon Coleman working out in Buffalo. I mean, it just does not work out. I don't know how many times. It always seems to be second round draft picks too. And it's usually a receiver. I don't know how many times I see this in the NFL. You would think second round draft picks, I mean, everybody knows first round draft picks. Well, those guys are really good. They're going to be starters. So you would think second round draft picks, they're going to be really good too. May not be as good as the first round guys, but they're definitely going to be around and contributing. And yet I see so many second round draft picks in my life that have just done nothing. And it just shows you how tough it is in this industry to find guys, no matter what the round. So yeah, Keon Coleman, I was never high on Keon Coleman to be a second round draft pick in the first place. I always thought that was way too high for him. He had some issues that kind of showed up in college. Matter of fact, look what the scouting report was on him here. Let's see. Let me see. And I don't need the positive stuff. Let me see what we were critical. Ourlads, let's see. Ourlads with the scouting report, what were they critical about? All right. Still needs to clean up some of his footwork and timing. Top end speed not be enough to get behind his secondary consistently. Does not play true to his size and strength with the ball in his hands. A very hot and cold style to his game. That's pretty much what we're seeing from him, isn't it? It really is. And these are all warning signs. But hey, Ourlads felt he was second, third round draft pick material. So, yeah, it's not going to work out for him there. I don't know if it's going to work for him out, period. But, yeah, again, if it does work out for him and the Bills do use their first round draft pick on a wide receiver, and then Coleman actually ends up becoming like a player, then watch out. Then the Bills will be unstoppable. But I don't know. Okay. So, and look, there are other things we need to go over here with the Bills because look, I was going over let's see. Go by, where is the free agent tracker? All right. So look at all the players that they still haven't. Look, first of all, they've already lost Edwards at guard. So they're going to have to do something about replacing him. They lost 3 defensive backs, including Teron Johnson. They lost their fullback. That's not a big deal. But then there's guys that are still out there. Joey Bosa. They got 2 receivers, Cooks and Samuel. I think Cooks should come back. I think Cooks would be a really valuable veteran to bring back. AJ Epinesa, there's a high draft pick. What was he, a second rounder? That never worked out. Dane Jackson, he was a cap casualty. There's Daquan Jones is still out there. Matt Milano, obviously, is a big name. He's out there. Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, yeah, he's kind of done. Jordan Poyer. Taylor Rapp, he's out there. Tre'Davious White. Yeah, there's a lot of players that the Bills that were a key part of their team last year that they're going to have to replace. And taking a look at who they did replace or at least fill in some spots. Again, the Moore deal. Nothing here on offense except, look, they did add Christian Berry and Corbett. So that's like their, really what that is your veteran insurance in case you can't go out there and get yourself a guard. Now, look, it's possible, even though I think a lot of draft mocks are out there going wide receiver, it's possible they could go guard. That's possible. Defensively, of course, this is really what these are the two. Well, look, D. Alford's a nice add-on. I'm not a big D. Alford guy, but okay, he's a starting nickel. That's fine. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he'll last for a year. Like he's a year a team a year. And then Bradley Chubb. That is going to be the big difference too for the Bills. Because if they're going to take that next step defensively, they need pass rushing. That's the one thing that killed last year. Because they kept, look, this was a high draft pick. I don't have to tell Bills fans. We just talked about Epinesa. They just kept missing with those top early round draft picks at edge rusher. They couldn't get their long-term all-pro. And that's what they needed. So, look, this is a deep class of edge rushers, but I don't expect them to go that route. with their first pick, that Bradley Chubb is going to be everything to them. He has got to stay healthy. And if he can stay healthy and be the best of Bradley Chubb, then that is going to be huge for the Bills. Absolutely huge. But it's got to stay healthy. And I think what Gardner Johnson does is he brings attitude to the defense. And it's something I know that Brady wants. And good for him. Because that is definitely something that if he believes they need, this is the NFL, man. You got to have a little toughness back there, and Gardner Johnson definitely brings that. Okay, I still have something that I want to go over with you, not just because this would be where's the other one? Yeah, because he had a couple of comments on DJ Moore and Kincaid. Let's see. Here we go.
Speaking of DJ, why can he be successful in this offense?
Yeah, I think I am fortunate that I know DJ, but DJ has a unique skill set. He can play inside, he can play outside, right? He can run block. He makes dynamic plays down the field. You can get the ball in his hands. He's a little bit like a running back. He can do so many different things. And knock on wood, he plays, he practices, he's out there every day, he's playing every game, and he is playing, and he's not coming off the field. And that's unique at the wide receiver position. And it's been a while since I've been coaching him, and I've been wanting to coach him for the last few years. And so having that opportunity to kind of do it again excites me.
You said that you don't know until you do it.
All right, that's
Calling
DJ
plays.
Moore. Now let's go with Kincaid.
For games.
That's been it's you can't really predict the future with regards to the medical element of it. But man, you guys saw you saw him in the playoffs, right? And he's a difference maker, and you get him in matchups, both safeties, linebackers. You feel like it's not in the critical moments, Josh looking his way. You want him out there. And so he's been a lot of communication with him this offseason. Look, he did everything he had to do last offseason too. Like it wasn't one of those things where he was injured, took off the offseason, and then showed up and was like, hey, I'm still injured. It was like, no, he lived in the weight room last year, lived in it all, got stronger. I think it was just something he was just having to figure out how to play with. He is as tough as can be. Like there's a lot of things that, he is pushing through that you guys might not see. But I think some of it is just learning how to play with certain elements of some movements that it might not feel great, and he's had to push through that. But when he's out there, we're better. That's undeniable. And getting a plan with our strength staff, with our science, performance team of figuring out what that looks like week to week. Like how much does he have to practice so that he's ready to go? What do we have to do with his movements? Because I'm understanding how important he is, right? And I do believe practice is important, but I also don't want a guy where he does so much in practice that he can't be the same person in the game. And so figuring out the ebbs and flows of it, but he's dynamic, and we're better when he's on the field.
All right. So there you go. Interesting notes on DJ Moore and Dalton Kincaid. I was just a huge Kincaid fan in college. Thought he was going to have a really tremendous pro career, but it was always the injuries, because he was such a physical player that you just didn't know if he was going to be able to hold up. But hey, I think he will, if he does get the right strength and conditioning coaching, and he gets the proper, assistance he needs in that department. And hopefully, the bigger and stronger he can deal with that sort of part of his game, because the Bills need him. And that's something maybe that you also learn as you get older and more mature. It's nice to be physical, and it's nice that you want to play all out all the time, but you do have to remember that it's important that you play and you're here for us. And so there were times that you need to understand, and but it's tricky. It really is. It's not easy, but I think it's just like anything. And the more you mature as a football player, the more you understand exactly how you need to protect yourself. And it's not just even with McKincaid. You see this with a lot of players who deal with injuries. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there are players who are not necessarily the most physical, but they deal with injuries, and it's not because they're frail, but they don't know how to take care of their body. And that's why it's important that they figure that out themselves, but they better get that assistance. And that's why we talk about coaching all the time in the NFL. I don't know how many times we talk about drafts, and when we do recaps of drafts, we always talk about, well, did he land in the right place? Or when we're talking about, especially quarterbacks, we say that all the time about quarterbacks. Oh, yeah, I think he could have a long career in the NFL. It all depends on where he goes. And that's the truth. And it's the same about not just about head coaches, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. It's also about strength and conditioning coaches. Are you getting the proper nutrition advice? It all goes down to that. And that's why you see some teams are more successful than others. A lot of it has to do with not just your head coach, but your entire coaching staff and how you put together a team nutritionally. That's why strength and conditioning coaches, man, they are underrated. All right. Let's move on. Okay. Let's go to Miami. And we're going to check in. Well, before we do that, who did we have with Buffalo on the we talked about it already, the mock draft. Oh, that's right. We both had receivers. I had Boston, and I believe our lads had Cooper. So, okay, we'll see if that's the direction they go. Again, I still think guard is a possibility, and they can go in a number of different directions. But remember, no second-round draft pick. I went to Chicago for DJ Moore. Okay, so let's take a look at the Miami Dolphins. And look, all you got to do is take a look at their depth chart right here. They got issues, especially here in the secondary. I don't know if they have a starter in the secondary, like a real starter. I guess it all depends on what they really think of Baker and what they feel about Marshall. Remember, this is a new GM and a new head coach. So they didn't draft any of these guys. All they did was bring in all this free agent stuff. And as far as even here, I mean, Uche and Ajabo are both guys that haven't yet lived up to the expectations. It's kind of what they're hoping. That's what you do when you're rebuilding. You bring in young guys and you hope that maybe you can get the best out of them. Maybe it's just timing. Yeah, I mean, Lonnie Johnson. Storm Duck. Now, this is also, Trader and Marshall. These are guys that they're going to need to take that next step. They really need those two young kids to take that next step. And again, I don't know what they think about Baker. But it's not just that. It's like even back here, it's the Dolphins have got they have now at least linebacker. I think they're set. I don't think they have to do anything at linebacker. They brought back Dodson and Gay. Brooks knows what he's doing. But up front, man, they got to get Chop. It can't just be Chop Robinson. So they have to get another edge rusher. And Kenneth Grant, really good pick last year. I think he'll be fine. They have a couple other young players from last year's draft class. Again, you got to hope that they work out. Seiler's a good player. But, man, I mean, if you look at this defense, there isn't one difference maker on the roster so far. Now, can this coaching staff get Chop Robinson, Kenneth Grant? I think that's it. Those are the two guys that you really feel if they get the talent, and we know they got the talent, if they get the coaching, and just how much talent do they have? Well, we'll find out. And then offensively, boy, they really need wide receivers. I get that. And that's why Ourlads had Tate going to the Dolphins. I just don't think that you should be drafting wide receivers with your first pick when you're rebuilding like the Dolphins are. But, they're so devoid of talent here that I can understand it. I will say this, Atwell and Tolbert are not journeymen. I think they're the type of players on their second teams that with a new staff that you hope you can get something out of them. And they're going to get opportunities now because Atwell was stuck. And I always thought Atwell was a little bit, as much as I'm a huge Les Snead fan, that was one of those picks where I was like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Atwell really started to get better and in his career, and then all of a sudden there just wasn't any room. Sure, he'd get some opportunities, but nothing like the opportunities he thought he should have. And now he's going to get them. And Jalen Tolbert wasn't getting anywhere either with the Cowboys. So he's going to get a chance now. And Washington is a decent player. But look, there's no number one, and there's really no number two. So they need two top-end receivers. So I guess that's why if you're going to pick one, then I guess you might want to think about picking one of those guys early. Again, it could be in the first round. It could be with your top pick. Because Willis is going to need some help. Okay, so unless you're going to make a trade, which they're not going to, I would doubt, to get a receiver in there. And the offensive line, I don't think they're going to look. The whole deal here with Austin Jackson is he can't stay healthy. And so that's going to be an easy decision to go into the draft. That's why I say I went with two DBs for the obvious reasons. And Ourlads went with a DB and a receiver. Again, receiver, obvious reasons. But right tackle, you see, that's the thing, is that I don't know if they need to go right tackle this year, first round, because with so many other needs, they could say, okay, well, we'll get a right tackle maybe in this. What do the Dolphins have? Dolphins have 4 picks in the third round. So maybe the Dolphins will pick an offensive tackle in round 3. And hopefully that kid will get the opportunity to play and start if Austin Jackson's not healthy. And then they hope that that guy becomes a starter and they don't need to get a right tackle for next year's draft. Because Austin Jackson might still be able to play a little bit this year. But they could also look and say, no, we like so-and-so tackle with our first pick or our second pick, and we're going there. That's possible. So there's so many needs they have here. All right. Let's see what Jeff Hafley has to say. Where's Jeff Hafley? All right. Let's see what Jeff Hafley has to say. He's going to talk a little bit about culture changes.
Quick follow-up. Did you feel a need to change anything in the building, like aesthetics-wise, whether it's a saying or where the guys' lockers are, anything like logistically, so it feels different to them than what they experienced last year?
That's a good question. Yes and no. No, as of right now. I want to get through this whole entire OTA offseason. I want to get a feel for who we are. I want to get a feel for who we have. Then I want to do that. And also, as we develop our culture and figure out who these guys are, I also wanted to build around that. So I just didn't want – I'm very big on building around the guys that we have and will have, rather than just being cookie cutter, saying these are my 3 sayings and throw them on the wall, right? So I want to be able to get a good feel for this, spend a lot of time thinking through it, and then once training camp hits, that's what we're going with. but each year is different. Each team is different. Or there's some rules I believe in. Yeah, absolutely. That those won't change. Or there's some core fundamental values. Absolutely. But I think before we start throwing stuff up on the wall, I want to find out who this team's going to be and who this staff's going to be.
The thing with Hafley is interesting because here's another guy that sort of like LaFleur, but I even think more so Hafley. Hafley, ever since his days at Ohio State, very, very well respected, gets the job at BC. And there was a lot of hope. BC fans were ecstatic. We've got ourselves, up and comer, and it never worked out. It just didn't. Now, he didn't coach horribly. He didn't have the talent. You could see how O'Brien's having a hard time. He's not a bad coach, but he sure looked like it, right? Because he doesn't have the talent. It's not easy to coach at Boston College in the ACC right now with the transfer portal. But that was for a few years ago with Hafley. But it didn't work out there. And then he gets the job with the Packers. And, to me, it kind of went pretty fast. He went from not really being a successful head coach in college. Again, I don't think it was his fault, but he didn't get really an opportunity to prove himself. So it wasn't it definitely wasn't like a C plus. The best you could say was a C or a C minus because you just don't know. Even though I'm sure there were Boston College fans, they would have their own opinion, probably more negative. But then, so it's like he goes from having not the success that was expected of him there, goes to Green Bay, and then almost in a flash gets a head coaching job in the NFL. So it just shows you again that it's just like it would happen with LaFleur with the Jets. Terrible time with the Jets. Terrible. Gets another job, then his next job is head coach. Hafley, not a success in Boston College, gets another job, boom, becomes a head coach in the NFL. So, but I will say this, I am a lot more optimistic about Jeff Hafley in Miami than I am with Mike LaFleur in Arizona. A lot more. To me, it's not even close. But it's going to take time because, again, this it's good that they have a boatload of draft picks. And I don't expect the Miami Dolphins to be like other teams, to be trading, 5 times and to get premium picks. They're going to use a lot of these picks because they need a lot of players. They're probably not, of course, going to get them all, but they are going to use up a great deal of those picks. That's how much talent and fusion that this team needs. All right, next up, he's going to talk about his quarterback.
Lines of mapping out your offseason, have you given Malik Willis any guidance or been like, hey, this is what we want to see from you? And what maybe has that been?
Yeah, I had a great conversation with him yesterday. He came off. I said, don't change who you are. I said, don't put any extra pressure on yourself. You've earned the right to be here and have this opportunity, and you've done that by doing all the things the right way. Don't change that. Don't press. Just be you. And I want to make sure that he understands that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes made. But I want him to play with that confidence, and I want him to play the way he's always done it.
When it comes to classroom teaching.
Okay. Now, I think Miami and Hafley is in a better situation in his first year, say, than the Jets with Fields, because at least, even though Hafley's not an offensive guy, it wasn't like he was Willis's coordinator. There was a real knowledge of what was going on with the kid. Hafley knew. He was the defensive coordinator, so in practice, every day, all year long, he knew the positives and the negatives of the quarterback, of Willis. And so that will make the transition a lot easier for Miami. And now look, did Willis deserve the contract? Of course not. A lot of these quarterbacks are getting they're just stealing money the way the system is in the NFL quarterbacks. But some of them wind up succeeding, and Willis will get his chance. And again, I think he has a much better opportunity here with Miami. And I think that has a lot to do with why he chose Miami. It made perfect sense. Why wouldn't I go to the place where I know Halfley? He knows me. He's going to give me the best chance to succeed. He was going to get paid anywhere that he decided to go. So why not Miami? Made perfect sense. This was a no-brainer. And this is going to be the best opportunity for Willis to succeed. Do I believe Willis is a starter in the NFL? I don't know. But you know what? That is light years ahead of what I thought about him when he was traded to the Packers a few years ago. And it also just shows you, and it's one of the things that I'll always be able to bring out when I talk about coaching, because there was nothing from college to those first couple of years in Tennessee. There was nothing that anything that you saw from Willis that led you to believe that he could have played the way he played last year. Nothing. Or the year before. But how did it happen? Because of coaching. That's the difference between good coaching and bad coaching. And that's, again, why I say, hey, it all depends on where the kid goes in the draft. Because if Willis would have stayed in Tennessee and been stuck in that position, and let's say they drafted Ward and Willis stayed the backup, that's all he would be doing right now is sitting on the bench in Tennessee. Instead, he's a millionaire. And he's got an opportunity to start. Some guys get lucky, some guys don't. And Willis is definitely on the lucky side. But now now it's up to him. And look, they've got to do a better job, the Dolphins, of making sure that he's got players around him. Because this is really going to tell us just what Willis has. What exactly does Willis, what can he bring to the Dolphins? Can he be the type of quarterback that can elevate his game when he doesn't have the talent around him? That's a difference maker. That's a true starting quarterback in the NFL. Or is he a quarterback that needs the talent around him to succeed? I'm not talking about, look, nobody's expecting Willis to play like he did last year, statistically, winning games. That's not going to happen. The Dolphins aren't talented like the Packers are. But can he at least show you that he's still that guy? You can see it. And if he's got the proper talent around him, then he will be able to take that next step. That's what's going to be real important, to make sure that he's got as much around him as possible and as quickly as possible, because the Dolphins need to figure this out. This is basically just a 1-year deal. This is just, okay, let's see how he's going to play, because if we're going to give him a chance, we're going to give him a fair chance. We got to make sure that he's got the proper talent around him, which means they got to, again, nobody's expecting, I don't expect Willis the Dolphins to go with a wide receiver in the first round, but there are enough quality receivers. They could draft 2 guys in the 4th round. 2 guys. What do they have? Those third round draft picks. You can get 2 guys in the 3rd round. You don't have to draft 1. Get 2. Just don't worry about the 1st round, 2nd round. Just get 2 guys in the 3rd round. And if you hit one of them, then you're okay. You're in a good situation. And you probably should also go after a tight end, because you can't count on Dulcich to be a starter. It'd be great if he can finally live up to his billing, because that's what everybody expected when he got drafted. but that's not expected. All right. One more to go. You want? Let's see what he talks about with a cornerback scheme, press versus zone, and a little bit more on culture.
I guess adapt to whoever you have in the building.
Well, one, when you play football, I think it's our job to maximize our players' talents. If we get good press corners, we should press, right? If we get guys that are better corners at playing off or playing zone coverage, and I just decide we're going to press all the time, I think that's bad coaching. I mean, that never made any sense to me. I mean, people say, I thought you were a big press guy. Yeah, I am. I mean, when I was in Cleveland, I think we pressed all the time. We had a Pro Bowl corner and pretty much a Pro Bowl corner and a Pro Bowl nickel and 2 Pro Bowl safeties. I mean, it's what do you have, right? Other places I've been, I've had really good corners that can play zone. It's just, I think that's our job. And now adapting sayings and logo, like I also want there to be some ownership within the team. I mean, each team's going to be different, right? I think it's a shared vision that I lead, and I want guys to take a lot of pride in it. And I think you do that by building it the right way through who you have and what your team becomes and who is your team. I mean, I could tell you right now what I want the identity of our team to be. I'll tell you when training camp is done who we really are, or else it's just a bunch of coach talk, and I'm full of it up here. I'm not just going to throw out a bunch of phrases and lingo. I mean, that's just not me. I mean, I want to find out who this team is, and then I want to match that with who we become so it's real, and I'm not saying one thing and we're playing like another thing.
All right. So that is Jeff Hafley. And Grandizer wants to know why the Dolphins signed Malik Willis, or he questions the signing. And look, I know Ewers showed promise, but he was a late round draft pick for a reason. And yeah, you mentioned Zach Wilson. And look, I still believe that Zach Wilson, just like I said, with Willis being lucky, and I said it a few times already here about how lucky a player like Willis could be, and he finds the right team, the right coaching, and then he gets paid a gazillion bucks to be a starter, whether he earned it or not, really. And then you get the other side. You get the Zach Wilsons, all the talent in the world, goes to the Jets, has to deal with the losing franchise and all that stigma, and being a quarterback in New York. It has the grizzled, experienced quarterback guru die on him before he could take over for the Jets his rookie season, leaving Mike LaFleur with no experience as an OC to be the only guy that can help Zach Wilson. And we all saw how that turned out. Do you know how bad Mike LaFleur had to be for Robert Saleh to get rid of him? That's his best man's brother. He had to fire him. That's how bad. That's why I feel the way I do about Mike LaFleur. So with Zach, it's like he didn't have it. Just check out box scores when Zach Wilson played, especially in his last year, and just check out, especially those last like month or two that he played. Just find out who his receivers were, and see exactly how he was supposed to succeed. And again, Nathaniel Hackett, hired by LaFleur, was his OC when LaFleur left. Hackett was supposed to be there because of Rodgers. He was just, this buddy Rodgers deal, and Hackett had no success anywhere else except with Aaron Rodgers. Big surprise. But Rodgers loved them. They got along, so Hackett got a job. But now LaFleur was gone, and it was Hackett's chance, and Hackett didn't know what to do with Wilson. He was there for Rodgers, and Rodgers gets hurt, and now it's Hackett and Wilson. Zach never had a chance. Never had a chance. So now Zach is same thing that's going on with Zach went on with Geno Smith, basically. Geno then had to go be a backup until he found the right spot. Now, I don't think it's going to take Zach that long. The quarterback play in this league is so weak overall that there's no way that he's not going to get a chance. No way. The question is going to be, will he get lucky enough to end up in the right spot? Now, I think the Saints is a good spot. I mean, Kellen Moore knows how to coach. So I think he's in a good spot. But he's not going to win the job there. They're not going to elevate him to the head job. So he's going to have to only get that job if there's an injury. If Blau gets hurt, Zach will get the opportunity, and then we'll find out if he has become, or at least advanced enough with the proper coaching. And that'll be his shot. But who knows? Maybe there's no injury, and he goes from team to team to team until he gets his chance. But he will get his chance, and I think when he does, as long as he's coached up, I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league. It's going to take him a while, though. I hope it doesn't take as long as it took Geno, but that's what's going to happen. So with the Dolphins, no, I didn't think that was going to really work out. And there's no offensive guru there either. And they had Quinn Ewers, and Zach was basically only kind of here for a temporary kind of bridge. Ewers was more of our guy. And again, keep in mind that Hafley, Quinn Ewers isn't his guy. So, and Hafley's defensive coach. So, you are talking about, even though last year you are keeping the same guy, you're just elevating his title. So there is some familiarity there, no question about it. And that's good. I think that's smart. That'll help, no question about it. As you're a first-time head coach in the NFL, to have a guy that's already been there, that knows the culture, the players, at least some of the guys that'll be there. That was pretty smart. Slowick talking about. So, but getting back to Willis, I just think that's why I wanted to compare him to Fields, because these deals that you give these guys, it's not going to destroy their cap in reality. It's and at the quarterback position, you are so starved to find your franchise guy that what these teams do, like the Jets with Fields and like the Dolphins with Willis, what they're doing is they're playing lottery here, and they're just hoping. They're giving them they give them a year. They're hoping that they don't have to go into the draft the following year and use up a high draft pick on a quarterback. They're hoping that this is the guy. He showed you he had some ability, and whether anybody believes he deserves this chance or not, it's the NFL. They're starved for quarterback play. And so because of that, I was his harshest critic. Harshest. I mean, I just could not understand what LaFleur was doing in Green Bay in trading for this guy. I didn't understand it. I was like, I didn't see it. But again, it just shows you what great coaching can do. But now he doesn't have that coaching anymore. This is why this is just, and look, I know it's a lot of money, but you got no alternative. None. You got, just like the Giants had to pay Daniel Jones, and then it didn't work out. And again, there's nothing you can do. This is the way the salary structure is. You have to pay these quarterbacks if you want to give it a shot. And if the Dolphins didn't do it, another team was going to do it. Now, I know Dolphin fans probably out there, maybe it's just like you, Grandizer, and are like, I wish it wasn't me. I wish they had given Quinn Ewers an opportunity. But again, different staff, and maybe they don't see Quinn Ewers as the deal. I still really don't understand the whole Quinn Ewers thing myself, because a couple of years ago, he was looked at as a high draft pick, and he was going to be one of these guys. He was going to be, hey, he was one of these top quarterback prospects. Then the injury, and maybe that's what it is. They had the injury, and maybe the injury. Matter of fact, let me take a look at what our scouting report at Ourlads said about Quinn Ewers. All right, so here we go. And by the way, that's Ourlads. Fourth. That's why he was really good value. He was still projected as a fifth round draft pick, even though originally a lot of people thought he was going to be a first round draft pick. So let's see what sticks out here. 2.5 seconds, getting the ball out. That's positive. Easy flick of the wrist. Plays with a low pulse. That's really good, calm and composed. And he is, you could see it when he plays. And that's important at the quarterback position. Despite the obvious arm talent and 3 years of starting experience, his performance remained inconsistent, went backwards in his final year, which it did. When it came to ball protection, doubles his career interceptions, also doubled his career total fumbles, does not process well against pressure or the blitz. Mechanics tend to break down. Missed a couple games to injury all 3 years, and that's not good. And the fact that you don't have a big frame or special athletic ability, on top of the fact that you've already been dealing with injuries, that's not good. So, yeah, it's just one of these players that, this is why it's such a risk, and why anytime you see a quarterback like Simpson only have 1 year of starting experience in college, go to the pros, it does not work out. And that is the biggest issue with Simpson. And it's why he might actually last to the second round. I think what's more than likely going to happen is a team will probably trade into the first round to grab him. But the proof is there. If you don't have more than 1 year of starting experience, and what I'm getting to is see Ewers. If Ewers actually would have benefited draft-wise with less experience in college, then he would have been a higher draft pick. So the more time he played in college, then the more of the warts came out. But I think the most important warts were not being able to stay healthy, not having the frame, always getting hurt. And if that happens in college, it's going to happen in the pros. And so the risk is just too high there. Throw on top of some of the other warts in your game, some of the mechanics talked about, and it's like, no, we're not going to risk taking this guy. It's too, I just can't do it. It becomes too high of a risk with the flaws. So now nobody expected him to last when he did. Nobody. But you could see why a lot of teams, and maybe even Green Bay or even Hafley, if he was the coach there, would have said, no, I'm not interested in this guy, because a lot of teams weren't interested. He barely got drafted. So Green Bay, look, I don't know. Green Bay had their quarterbacks. I don't know if they needed one, if they would have taken him. But the fact that they went after Willis and gave him a lot of money means that they weren't interested in him. So that means that, what are you going to do? Are you going to use up one of your 2 picks in the first round for a quarterback? Well, you don't want to do that, because you don't have enough talent on this team. So if you would draft Simpson or Nussmeier, or one of these quarterbacks, could be Beck. He's got enough experience to start if he has to right away, even though he really shouldn't. And forget Aller. Aller definitely needs developmental time. So there's no way he's starting right away. And by the way, as a Jet fan, I would love to get Drew Aller. I would love for the Jets to draft him. You can stash him and give him a couple of years. So with the Dolphin situation, that's, you can't draft a quarterback then, and you'd rather go to next year. Oh, there's going to be up to 7 quarterbacks, maybe in the first round. Everybody's looking to next year. And I can see the Dolphins being the same way. The Dolphins are going to try to build up their team this year. We'll give Willis a shot. And if he doesn't work out, move on. And we bring in, we use up one of our picks next year in the draft. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm not surprised that they did what they did to get him. And again, maybe it just made the most sense because of the relationship with Hafley. Okay. So that's going to do it. And I must say, where did I have this? Oh, there it is. I must say, because you're mentioning Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross and others in the front office didn't want to have a year where they have the number 1 overall pick. Well, look, I think I don't know if Stephen Ross gets enough blame outside of Miami. I know how Dolphin fans understand the situation there, but I don't know. I look, for Dolphin fans' sake, I hope they got it right with Hafley. I think Hafley, I will say this, I think Hafley has a much better chance to succeed than several of the recent head coaches that they've hired. I think he has a really good chance because he's going to be given time. They're very patient there. And they're going to just try to build this thing right. He's got a long-time player personnel kid from Green Bay. That's great. I thought that was a good hire. You hire someone that was with the Packers organization for his entire career, 20 years, to run the Dolphins. They're going to be able to see eye to eye, and they're going to build this thing right. So, yeah, I think honestly, I think that the way the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins are set up now, of course, the Patriots are already ahead of everybody, but the Dolphins and the Jets, you're going to give them a couple of years, and they're now going to be in that position where they're going to be competing with the top dogs. And look, for Buffalo, who we talked about today, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what to expect from Buffalo other than, are we just going to see the same thing? And it's all about Josh Allen in the postseason, getting it done. And is Joe Brady the answer? I don't know. I think what the answer is okay, they overspent for DJ Moore, but they had to get him, so they got him. And if they do go out and get a Denzel Boston type or a Cooper, and they add him with Shakir and a healthy Kincaid and more, and to go with Cook and Allen, and if Bradley Chubb is healthy, then if I know all of that's going to happen, then Buffalo is going to win the Super Bowl. I don't even need to guess. Then I would say that they would be the team to beat, because I don't believe that Allen's incapable of getting over the hump. I don't think he's one of those players. I have a lot more respect and confidence in Allen than I do Lamar Jackson. I just think, now look, I don't know if it's, especially because of the fact that I think the Baltimore Ravens organization is and has been for a long time very well run. So, matter of fact, I don't think it's, look, Baltimore has been clearly run very, very well, very productive. One of the best franchises in the NFL for a very long time. Probably go 20, 25 years. That's how well the organization has been run at a great to very good level. And so Lamar Jackson, you would think you bring in a Lamar Jackson into that fold, that would put the Ravens in a situation to win Super Bowls. and he wasn't capable of doing that. And it was always an excuse. Oh, they need to get more receivers. Oh, they got to do this. Oh, they got to do that. It's one thing after another. And I'm not saying, of course, he doesn't know how to play, because obviously he's an MVP, multiple MVP, and I get it. And he's a really big difference maker at the position. But when you get to the playoffs, it's just different. And Josh Allen sees it, but I don't think they're in the same boat. I think Josh Allen is got the other level that I don't think Lamar Jackson has. And that's, again, it's no knock on Lamar Jackson. It's just that because I'm comparing him to Josh Allen. And I know Josh Allen hasn't won anything either, but that's just the way that I feel. And I think the Bills, and look, this is, it's probably why they overpaid for DJ Moore. They know that they're in a situation where they have to get it done now, and they're going to do what they need to do. Now, look, I still think they have to make a couple of moves, especially in the draft. We'll see what they do with their picks. And maybe even another trade, because they still have to fill some of that roster out. As I was saying, there's a lot of players that were a part of that team the last couple of years that right now are unsigned. And how are they going to fill those holes? So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We got a long time to figure this out. That's for sure. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in here, both live and on demand. And once again, I want to let everybody know that this is what I'm going to be doing 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We're going to try to do this between 8 and 9 start time every night. And I'm probably thinking we are going to go about close to 2 hours every night. I'm going to try to start earlier for my own sake, because I'm already feeling like as soon as I stop this and I hit the sack, that I'll probably be out in like 2 seconds, because I got up real early today. But look, there's a lot of work to be done. We've talked about 3 teams today. I want to get through 29 more before the draft next week. So that means, because I was trying to get to 4 and I only got to 3 today. So that means we have to pick one up. So, but there are only 7 more teams, I believe, we have to get to with new coaches. Not that I have to talk too much about, I don't have to go into too much of Stefanski, but the new guys, or even Salah, but the new guys we'll spend a little bit more time with to find out more about them, their philosophies, how do they sound, how do they conduct themselves, all that. And then don't forget, we're going to have hopefully our mock draft on the air next week with John Cooper and Dave Syvertson. And again, that took up like half the show actually today. So we're not doing that every day. So I hope you enjoyed some of the mock draft stuff. And we'll definitely talk a little bit about some of the important things going on with the draft between now and next week. And then when the draft is over and we've gone through all 32 teams to get you ready for the draft here on this show, then we're going to do it pretty much all over again. And we're going to go right back at it. And we're going to be talking to our 32 team analysts. We'll have them on this show. Now, when they're on this show, they're going to be 15 to 20-minute interviews. Not going to be like my one-on-ones that can last up to an hour. So these are going to be shorter interviews because this show is going to be multiple. We're going to have multiple type segments, just like normal type programming. And the bottom line is, again, and college football is right around the corner. So we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I'm going to try to get in as many talking heads on here as possible because the smarter people out there for their specific teams, the better. And again, this is why I say for anybody that's watching this right now that is a fan of a team, I welcome all of the debate. Keep it professional. And I have no mind going back and forth in a fun way, but just keep it professional. And if you do that, then we can have a nice little dialogue back and forth. Because again, I know if you're an individual fan of 31 other teams, because I'm just sorry, but if you're a Jet fan, that's the only fan base that I don't need to learn anything from. But I definitely value even Jet fans to interact with me based on how they feel as fans about things that are going on with the team, which we'll talk about on Wednesday with Matt LaFleur. Excuse me, with Matt LaFleur, with Matt O'Leary. So that'll be on Wednesday night. And I'm already have interview requests out for several other guys between now, or girls, between now and the draft. So anyway, again, check us out every day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We're going to be talking football, and we welcome your participation and your involvement in any way possible. So let me just see what we have here. Oh, you know what I wanted to do too? Before I even wrapped up, I wanted to see about some of these other comments, because again, most of these are pretty positive. Let's see. A head coach with solid plans. Let's see. How nice to have a sharp, coherent conversation with our coach. He's great to listen to. Let's hope it translates to the field. Oh, wow. What an upgrade. I could listen to Halfley talk football all day. A breath of fresh air. A coach that can form a thought and speak in complete sentences. Wow. How refreshing to get coherent, quick answers to questions without rambling. Well, I don't think a lot of those guys I don't think those fans really enjoyed what happened with McDaniel. And for the Bills, let's see. I don't care what anyone says. I'm fired up for this hire. The more I hear, the more I like it. Give Josh some receivers and there will be fireworks. Give him a chance, guys. Let's see. Best of luck, coach. Let's go get a ring. I don't know. Dude seems more passionate than McClappy. Shakir, 200 receptions. Well, that's not good. I think you got it backwards. Okay, that's not good either. This guy is an absolute weapon. JB, fire me up. I hate the way Bean stares at Brady. I fucking agree. I can't believe he's saying that. I was watching. See, he says, I can't believe. Wait, I hate the way Bean stares at Brady when he answers questions. I was looking at that too. And I was going, man, why is he doing that? Let's see if I can get a good one. Let's see. Is it over here? Well, here it is. Look, look at that. That was freaking me out too. I'm like, why is he looking at him that way?
Sometimes we think that, hey, when you take over a place, you just have to change a lot.
Look at the way he's staring at him. I mean, that's really freaking weird. And come on, you telling me he doesn't see this in the corner of his eye? This guy's staring at me. Stop staring at me. Or at least stop staring at me like that. Oh, he looked away. Oh, that's because the answer was over. Anyway, pretty funny. Okay. So I'm out of here. Thank you. Oh, Jack Lambert. Gotta love it. And of course, you have Jack Lambert there being a follower since the 80s. So you must be in the age range, child. That's cool. Gotta love the old timers like me. Okay. I'm out of here. Let me pack this up. There you go. All right. So that's it. Again, I don't have anything scheduled yet. I think I'm going to try. I think we might be doing AFC North, some AFC North stuff tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not going to promise anything. But again, bottom line is I got 29 to go, and we're going to wrap it all up by hopefully Tuesday. And then I'll let everybody know as soon as I know when our mock draft show will be next week. And then that's it. So don't forget, Ourlads Draft Guide. You can check out online on the website for either the draft guide or the PDF version if you would like it mailed to you, or if you like it before you have to wait for it to get mailed to you. And I'll see everybody again tomorrow night. That's going to be our usual stopping place. So you know where to find me. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see everybody again tomorrow night.